Salutations. My name is Christian Dittmer, and as the title suggests, I just released a new EP on every major platform, hopefully. Yeah, you should be able to find it on YouTube Music, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. I did release 2 singles beforehand, and something happened. Like there's 2 piano tracks, one for each single, and they came out completely silent when I like the audio file that I submitted to be distributed. And yeah, so that's on every platform now. I'm probably gonna have to delete those 2 singles, which is an unfortunate waste of $20. But yeah, I'll fix the problem and re-release it within the next few weeks. So yeah, I started making it with the intention of it being an EP like around April or March. However, a few of the songs predate that a bit. One of them even by a year or 2. But yeah, I just thought, why not, you know? So the title is NB, or in parentheses, Nota Bene. That Nota Bene comes from a lyric in the last track. And of course, I got the idea for the title when writing that track, but I kind of like that title because NB is, of course, an abbreviation, but I kind of see the parentheses meaning that, like, that's only one way to interpret it. It's not like the definitive answer to what NB means, because, you know, there are other interpretations of that abbreviation that may or may not relate to the day that it was released on, July 14th, which coincidentally happens to be Non-Binary Person's Day. But I won't keep talking about that out of fear of how my last video was received, the last video in which I spoke. Anyway, I'll go through each track on the EP, starting out with the lyrics, explaining what the song means to me, at least, what inspired it, and then I'll kind of analyze the technical aspect of things, look at the music, music theory, all of that stuff. So the first track, it's called The Diatonic Sounds of an Inexplicably Indecipherable Identity. Yeah, that's kind of a mouthful. I thought it would be kind of ironic to make the shortest track on the EP have the longest title. But I mean, that's a good summation of what the EP is really about. It's kind of for me, it's about a struggle to like realize who you actually are, you know? It's a dubiousness toward oneself. And also the word diatonic means completely within one natural scale, which is, you know, which describes that song. It's completely in the scale of D minor. Yeah, the first sound that you hear, skipping over the lyrical part because of course it's an instrumental track, the first sound we hear are these birds chirping. And if you listen closely, you can actually hear me breathing, which, yeah, I mean, the microphone picks up a bit more than it probably should. There's a lot of like bits of white noise that you can hear, and then sometimes it suddenly cuts off after I speak in other tracks, because I didn't edit it too well. But you know, that's neither here nor there. Yeah, that's probably just not the ideal microphone that I should have used, but it's the one I had, so I used it. Going back on track, yeah, we hear the birds, and trust me, that wasn't like any feat to record. Where I live, the problem is actually trying not to get the birds into your recording. But the first like actual instrument that we hear is this synthesizer that was in the Logic Pro instrument library. It was called Electric Harmonics, but of course I tweaked it a little bit. I turned some knobs and did some stuff. Essentially, I made it, or I tried to heighten the modulation that would happen when you hold down a sustained note like that. It would go like or something to that effect. And it sounds pretty cool. Like it starts completely silent and then rises dynamically till it gets pretty loud. And that's also important to note for how the EP ends, because there's a bit of bookending. Like I used that same instrument on the last track, and it like fades out. It goes from loud to completely silent. And yeah, I think this is maybe the most consistently used instrument in this whole release. Back to the first song. After the, electric harmonic crescendo, it's joined by a flute mellotron. And a mellotron is basically just a keyboard that samples some recording, whether it be of a flute or even a voice. Another good example of a mellotron is in the Radiohead song "Exit Music for a Film," where they use a vocal mellotron in one section, and also you can see a video of me performing that same song up here if you want to. I'm just doing a bit of shameless self-promotion, but I mean, that is what this whole video is about, promoting myself. Anyway, yeah, basically the rest of the song is centered around this little phrase going... Of course, that's a D minor chord. And all of the notes are completely in that scale, making it diatonic. I appreciate my use of counterpoint in this song. I think it turned out pretty well, and it leads pretty neatly into the next track, Mr. Second Amendment. So yeah, this one also starts out with bird sounds, and like the very first sound on the track is actually my phone buzzing. That happened in the middle of when I was recording the birds, and in the moment I was like, why? It was kind of mad, but then I realized that my phone buzzes in the key of D, which is what the song is. That's the key that the song's in. So I just kept it in. I was like, hey, that's actually an interesting way to open the song. But I said I would investigate the technical part last. So let's look at the title. The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, of course, is the right to bear arms. And the Mr. part, it's actually this name that I jokingly called a family member of mine who, so he has like really hairy arms. Just excessively. No, I jokingly called him Mr. Second Amendment one day because he's exercising his right to bear arms. A bear, of course, as in ursine mammal. And yeah, it was just a fun joke. But I kind of took that and turned it into this whole new thing. And of course, we're, in this analogy, we're completely leaving my family member. His character doesn't relate to the one I described in the song. But another fun fact is that his arm is actually the one I used in the album cover. That's his arm with all the hair on it, to demonstrate why I called him Mr. Second Amendment. And also, he's holding a razor blade, which is something that I mentioned in the mid-section, the mid-verse or whatever. Instead, the actual Mr. Second Amendment is using their razor blade, like, against other people defensively, in case they might parade their arms in front of him. As I discussed, and I think you'd call that a verse, where I say you're kindling despair, this pair of kids, all by a kid subject to harm. Yeah, that part becomes a little more explicit about talking about the use of armaments, but yeah, I guess basically the protagonist, or the speaker, who we may call the Achromaticist in reference to the sequential track on this album or EP. I think it's safe to say that they are the one whose perspective we see throughout this whole release. So, they're just like angered by this man's existence, and of course in the verse, him bringing up the kids, it only escalates this. It's always about the kids, whether they're being harmed by certain people's decisions. But the most important thing to note about this track, in my opinion, is the very last lyric that you hear, which is where he's continuing to berate Mr. Second Amendment for not shaving his arms, i.e. not getting rid of his guns. But then he's like, I've shaved my arms, but they won't stay bare. And he's like starting to reflect on himself, and he realizes that he or they, really, they're gender neutral. I shouldn't be using he. That's the patriarchy's fault for making male the default pronoun. Anyway, this is what's making the speaker feel so mad. The fact that he doesn't have that kind of confidence. It's something he's always craved, but he just can't attain it. They can attain it. Oh my god. It starts off with a bar of 17/8, and then a bar of 9/8, and then 1/2. So I just chose those time signatures because together they make 1791, 1791, and that year is the year in which the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was passed. Not too deep, but I mean it's meaningful. It's a informed decision. And so the next interlude also corresponds to certain years. This time we have a bar of 28, and then 1, 2, and then 2, 1. Those time signatures are a bit more like ambiguous, and I don't know if a professional musician would have notated it that way. Hey, I mean, there's so many ways. There's like infinite ways that you could interpret a time signature, that you could even interpret 4/4. I can't even say if the rest of the song is in 4/4 or like 8/4. I mean, it's paradoxical, it's ambiguous, it's kind of supposed to be that way. Anyway, so it's 21/2. So I picked that year, and then the next one is the same, except the bar of 1, 2, and 2, 1 are swapped, so it's 22/1. 2012 and 2021 are both years in which, let's say that there occurred certain events that kind of showed certain negative ramifications of the Second Amendment. I won't be too explicit, but at least the event in 2021 might be easier to guess. I think we should move on because I don't want to take up too much time on each song. This shouldn't really be a long video, unless it is. I hope it isn't. But yeah, there's a pretty dissonant climax. I end on a very non-tonic chord. Can't remember which one again, but yeah, it just presents a very clear contrast to the previous diatonic song. But the next song, the Achromaticist, goes back to this diatonicism, at least mostly. So the word achromaticist is one that I made up. It comes from achromatic. That is a word, achromatic. It means not chromatic. So if you're not familiar, chromatic basically means well, it means this. It's like all notes, just no specific scale. It's just all the notes together with no coherent, like no consistent. I don't know. Just that. That's chromatic. And so achromatic means that you're not chromatic, or it means diatonic. So the scale that I use for this song is technically diatonic. There is a key change in the middle, but it's completely in a harmonic minor scale. So it's not a natural scale. It's not one of the 7 modes, but it is still consistent. It's all in F harmonic minor, which sounds like. But then it switches to, I think C sharp harmonic minor, which sounds like. And so yeah, that one's a bit more dissonant because there's 2 tritones in there rather than just the usual one. In a major scale, there's usually just this one tritone. This tune, is one that I wrote about a year ago, and I didn't really know what to do with it. I wrote most of this piece, but I kind of forgot about it. But then when I was making this EP, I was like, hey, I could bring that back because I was kind of thinking about the themes of being monotone or like monotonous, which is something that resonates with me very deeply, as an autistic person with very flat vocal inflections. And yeah, that's why I sing all of the lyrics monotonously. It's just one note, it's just G sharp. And I realize I'm getting ahead of myself. I said I would talk about the lyrics first. So yeah, these lyrics are written pretty interestingly. Like, I kind of start a sentence, and then as I end that sentence, the last word becomes the first word of the next sentence. So I can't speak what I want to mean something to them. So that becomes I want to mean something to them, and then to them I speak unintelligibly. It's, yeah, I don't know. I just came up with it, and I was like, hey, that's a pretty cool lyric. Last part of the song is just me repeating a phrase or two phrases over and over again. What you think of me, I can say candidly, and then I can't speak, but I can see. And yeah, basically it's hard. It's difficult for the achromaticist to speak what they want to mean. It's hard for them to be understood by other people, and it's kind of hard, it's distressing. Like it's like the myth of Cassandra, right? She was a prophetess, but she couldn't like none of her visions of the future would be believed by the rest of the Trojans or the Greeks. They just ignored her while she was like predicting, hey, there's like Achaeans and that horse that just came over here, they're gonna kill all of you. And they're like, what are you talking about? No, there isn't. Anyway. But anyway, the last line, I can't speak but I can see, is just a little kind of a warning. I don't know. It's just an attempt to let their people around them know that even though you're not able to understand me because of how monotone my voice is, I can still like see how you think of me. I can still understand you, basically. Like if my if whatever's different about me has an impact on you, I can feel that because I still feel things. The Achromaticist still feels. They are empathetic, but they sound like a robot, and that's, it's a hard life. Of course, that's not always how I feel as a person. That's a gross exaggeration of my experiences, and if that is ever a problem, it's always something that I could work on. I could do vocal training. I'm just too tired and insecure. Let's talk about the music now. So, like I said, we're in the key of F harmonic minor, but the chord progression is pretty interesting. We start on the 4 of that chord progression, the 4, which is B flat. That's a B flat. B flat diminished 7. Yeah, half diminished 7. Sorry. Yeah. And then to F minor major 7. And then to this chord, which is C sharp major over A flat. No, D flat. Sorry, yeah, I should have said D flat major over E flat. So that's the flat 6 chord. That's really common, or it's a common like chord to. It's kind of relieving if you're in the minor key to hear like all of this. It's more hopeful, It's like, think Batman, that this is really the Batman chord, if you will. But then we just go back to F minor major 7, which makes us depressed again. But we restart, going back to the B flat chord, to F again. And then when we go to D flat, and also there's a sharp 4, sorry, that's a sharp 4, yes. We go to C sus 4, and not C major. Now this would really be the chord you would expect, the tension, but there's no E in there. But I wanted to make it different, I wanted to put you not at ease. It's a very unnerving chord progression. So going to the flat 6 and then the sus 4, you really want that 4 to resolve down to the E, to the 3rd of that chord. But I don't let it happen. I restrain myself and go back to the minor major 7. And then there's a the instrumentation. The piano I use is a pretty cool instrument. I think that's one of my favorite piano sounds in the Logic library, because it's like it reverses after you play it, and it's just a cool effect. Then I also use this kind of vocal synthesizer. It sounds pretty cool, pretty eerie. Of course, an organ. Now the organ. Let me talk about the vibraphone first. So when you hear it, it's kind of childlike. It's like a glockenspiel. That's what symbolizes childhood, or innocence. And being a pretty clear metaphor for like neurodivergence, or autism, a lot of stereotypes of that condition involve like children. You only, like the average person would likely only think of autistic people as just a small white boy who likes trains, and it's infantilizing, because that could be applied to fully grown adults who can make choices for themselves and do not need to have their hands held. Though sometimes holding hands might feel a little bit nice. Anyway, this is contrasted with the organ. Now, the organ is, it relates to another stereotype, kind of attributed to neurodivergent people, which is the savant, right? Now, the organ, at least from like the examples that I've seen, it relates to like the evil mastermind, right? I think I don't know. There's Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean. There's like Dracula. What else? Oh, and the Star Wars show Rebels. There's a character named Grand Admiral Thrawn, and so his like theme is an organ. It's an organ melody, and he's like an evil. Not evil, but he's a mastermind. He's concocted all these plans to catch the rebels and to do all this not so great stuff. That's not very helpful to apply that to like just normal autistic people. It's like expecting too much of them rather than infantilizingly too little. It's the other side of the spectrum. Anyway, I think we should move on, because, like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on each song. The next track, Vegetal, is just a simple acoustic guitar piece where I speak the words over instead of singing them, because it's more natural sounding and I don't have the capacity to really add many vocal effects without it sounding out of place. So I'm sure a lot of you, upon hearing the first words of that track, were like, wait, what did he say? And yeah, it's kind of out there, the lyrics. There's a potato growing on my couch. It's a couch potato, right? That's a common phrase in the English vernacular. It's often used to represent someone who just sits on the couch and, binge watches TV shows all day. We would call those kinds of people in a vegetal state, which, that's the title, Vegetal, right? So that's like on a surface level interpretation of this song. We see this the speaker talks about the potato and how it's kind of like invasive. You know, he didn't ask for it to be there, but it's there, and it's not going anywhere. Why not just, you know, when life gives you potatoes, just make potato soup or something. I don't know. It's kind of, how should I say this? It doesn't seem like a happy ending, him accepting the potato, because it's like he's accepting or embracing something that shouldn't really be there. And the way I see this, the way I conceived of this song was just kind of the uncontrollability or the inevitable pool of like empty pleasures that we all indulge in, you know. Like I myself have found myself just sitting in my chair watching YouTube for hours on end, not because I want to, but it's just what it's what my brain is desiring uncontrollably. But that's just one view. Given how abstract all of this is, it's hard to come up with a clear explanation for all of it. I just, you know, this was actually the last full song that I recorded, and I don't know, I just had the lyrics there. I had already written them earlier. I was like, I'll just add it because why not? And transitioning into the technical side of things, I use mostly the same chord progression as the Achromaticist, because at the end of the previous song, you can hear a guitar playing these notes, you know. Wait, no, it starts on... Yeah, like, wait. Well, you know, you would know what I'm talking about. Like you hear a guitar strumming each chord, and then cut to nature sounds, and I speak, and then strum the first chord, which is C sharp minor major 7, which is the key that the last part of the song ends in. However, I kind of play around with the key. I don't stick to C sharp minor major 7. I end up going from, well, actually, no, I play F sharp minor, actually, not F sharp diminished. I do that normal chord progression, and then I go minor major 7, and then C sharp dominant 7, completely just changing the mode that I'm in, the scale, into, I think is that C dominant 7? I can't remember. But yeah, it's unexpected, kind of like the lyrics of this song. There is a tonal center in the C sharp, but only briefly. Like, you feel comfortable until you're hit with this contrapuntal guitar interlude that is in an unrelated key. And yeah, I can't even really explain how I wrote that. I just did. I was inspired by the Bach minuet that I had just learned, which you can see me perform right here. It's I wanted to do some kind of counterpoint thing to make it more interesting, and so not just strumming chords. Oh, and another interesting fact that or just a fun little occurrence that happened when I was recording the sounds. I went outside to my pond and sat by this dock, just took my microphone out there and pressed record, there is like a fish in the pond that like splashed right next to me, and it happened to take place right in between, like right before one of the interludes, which is some pretty nice timing. Thanks Mother Nature. I don't know. Quiescent Consumption is the next piece on this EP, and it is purely instrumental, just like the opening track. Because there are no lyrics, it's more up for interpretation, but the title comes from this spoken word video that my friend and frequent collaborator Wesley Hargan was working on. It was called Eating in Silence, so I kind of just took that title and made it a bit fancier, I guess, but I liked it. So what I did was I asked him, hey, do you have any like titles that I could use for inspiration to maybe write a song that you could use in one of your videos? And he was like, yeah, and Eating in Silence just stood out to me. I think the way I viewed it was a bit different than what he wrote it about, because of course it was like he wrote it for church, like it was to play during the service, and of course my EP is not very religious, not that it couldn't be interpreted that way, but that's just not as relevant to my life right now. The way I thought about it was just, it's a moment, it's a warm place, you might say, to take time and think, to contemplate, and meditate, something that we all need, right? Or something that we should do. And so doing that can really help you, I don't know, ground yourself and reflect on everything that you maybe thought of yourself and thought of people around you before. Like the first few tracks on this EP are about a person, an achromaticist, who's just like speaking. He's vomiting out these words toward other people, Mr. Second Amendment, and toward himself and the Achromaticist, the song. And in this track, I want to get across that really one of the most significant methods you could use to remedy all of these issues that arise from doing things like that, and just all of the distress that could make you feel from living life like that, from just from living life like it's you versus the rest of the world, this antagonistic worldview. The remedy to that is silence and contemplation. Well, that's a remedy, and I think it's a very remedial one, or it's an efficient method to do that. So this track gives us a nice little break to think about, who am I? What am I doing here? I don't know, all of the philosophical questions. I don't have much to say about the music itself. It's just like I wrote the piece in 2 to 3 hours. I don't know, it's just writing from the heart. I took some inspiration, like again from Bach, and I used some counterpoint, especially in the last section of the song, and also the time signatures. They're everywhere. I think it starts out like maybe 19/8 or 17/8, and then it goes to 11, and then 13, and then 6/8, and then maybe 13 again, or 15. I can't remember. But it's pretty crazy. I did count, and there are 6 different time signatures or maybe 8, yeah, 8 different time signatures, and then 12 individual time changes, which is a lot, but it makes it more interesting. It's a more captivating experience, in my opinion. And so the end of this track leads pretty nicely, pretty seamlessly into, and again, this is thanks to my mixer, who made it like actually, a seamless transition. Before, you could kind of hear the difference between the tone of Quiescent Consumption and then the next song, but yeah, it transitions into Paradoxical Self-Perception, because my thought process was that this this eating in silence, yes, it leads to contemplation, but maybe contemplation isn't always healthy because it can be done to an extreme, and this extreme is what we see in the next song. So paradoxical self-perception, it means like to just have two very different perceptions of yourself and to not know which one is real, to not know whether what you think of yourself is actually true or is just something that's, that other people have influenced you to believe, or like your view of yourself is something that that everyone around you is kind of inculcated into you, or whatever. Yeah, so there's a lot of sociology in this song. I was taking a sociology 101 course when I was writing the song, so that's kind of why. But yeah, I reference ideas like the looking glass self. See what was the lyric? Right, it was back to my past through introspection. A looking glass can aid perception. I know that sounds pretty esoteric on the first listen, but I don't think the references are that unreadable. Like back to my past, like Back to the Future, it's kind of similar wording, and it's just a reference to how often we like to relive our past, or remember all of the conversations and the socializations that we went through, like when we're lying in bed and we're replaying the day in our head. You time travel back to your past through introspection, and you're like critiquing everything that you did. Like, did I do this right? What did they think of me when I said that? This relates to the looking glass self, which is a concept developed by a man named Cooley, I think, and it's the idea that you are what you believe other people think you are. Excuse me. So what that means is that you see yourself as the person who you think other people see yourself as. So like if you're called I don't know, like a prodigy by other people for a significant portion of your life, like people keep telling you that you're really talented and you're really smart and intelligent, that is who you become. You become or you see yourself as a person who is kind of smarter than average and really talented, and that's how you form your identity based on other people's thoughts, which is kind of scary to think that all of who you are is defined by other people and not something that you yourself have control over. And that's where the paradox comes in, because there has to be some parts of yourself that are true, that are like actual, that's who you were born, because we do in some cases feel a sort of dissonance toward the views that other people have toward us. So there's got to be something that differentiates those feelings of dissonance, that, you know, those should come from the true aspects of oneself. If we feel like they don't align with our identity, you know, this probably isn't making much sense, but again, there's just so many different interpretations that you could make of this. That's why the Nota Bene is parenthetical. You know, it's just a suggestion. It's just one interpretation out of many. I'm sure we've passed the 30-minute mark by now, so I will speed through the music side of things. I would like to I'll point out two significant sections of the piece. So it starts out like that, and that's how we transition. And so there are two different parts, two hands playing each part, and they're technically the same. Just a note and then major second up, and then a perfect fourth. Very, very consonant, you know, very simple. But on the other hand, I play the same thing, but a minor second down. And so, of course, a minor second is a very dissonant interval. With that being an octave up, it's actually a major seventh interval, which is less dissonant, and that's actually my favorite interval. I just love using it. It's, I don't know, it's a beautiful thing, and I just can't stop myself from playing it. So yeah, when you have these two consonant phrases kind of attacking each other like that, that's the closest thing I could think of to symbolize the paradox of this whole situation, you know. And then, like, the bass line, at least in the beginning, I think contains every single note in 12-tone equal temperament. No. Yeah, that's every note. And this whole opening, from my perspective, it sounds kind of similar to, I don't know, just something that Trent Reznor would write for Nine Inch Nails, because a large portion of this EP was inspired by, you know, just all that Trent Reznor has done, because he's amazing. And, well, titles like Mr. Second Amendment kind of feel like a parallel to the opening track of The Downward Spiral, Mr. Self-Destruct, because it starts with Mr., I don't know. And then Quiescent Consumption kind of reflects a warm place, like I alluded to, being an instrumental track. Oh, and then also the blowing, the song The Eraser kind of opens with something similar, except I think it's a saxophone reed in that song. Anyway, yeah, Nine Inch Nails is awesome. Go listen to them. The other musical note that I wanted to add is the ending, which sounds like this. Except it's with synth, like a synthesizer and a bass. And that synthesizer that I used is the electric harmonics that I just mentioned, because you can hear it modulating. And then, of course, it ends with whoom, boom, 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 and it sounds pretty cool. And basically what I did to get that effect is I took the dynamic, because like you can change the decibel level on each instrument, and so I just on the through line I took the thing and I brought it down to the very bottom to where you couldn't hear it, and then up, and then I repeated that to where it like goes down in volume, then up pretty quickly, and then quicker. I just had to do that manually. That's like my favorite part of everything. It's a major seventh. Like I said, I really love that interval, and it's fun because you would expect that's tonally centered. It's minor, and it's boom, we're done. The story has ended. But it hasn't ended. There's still one more track left. At last, we have reached the final song on this EP, which is No True Scotsman. Now, if you've studied logic or like logical syllogisms before, you will know that No True Scotsman is an informal fallacy that comes from this old saying that no true Scotsman would put sugar in his porridge, or something like that. I think that's right. Anyway, it's a fallacy of generalization, where you take the majority of a people group, and if the majority are like this, or if they all agree about this thing, then the whole, like every Scotsman must be like that. And it excludes all of the exceptions to that rule, because there are Scotsmen who don't put sugar in their porridge. I still think that's a very relevant idea to today. I mean, especially in politics, where, you have conservatism and liberalism, and they're like, this side believes this thing and this side believes this thing, and they don't agree, so we have to fight about it. It's just so tiresome. I think it's best that I don't get involved with that, but hey, I can write a song about it. So, for context, the whole thing is about a conversation that two people are having. It's initiated by this deep-voiced man, which I'll tell you a secret, that's actually me with a deep voice modulator on. I'm being sarcastic. Of course, it's me. He initiates the conversation, and he's speaking to normal voice me, who we could continue to call the Achromaticist. Yeah, he's like, converse with me now, like it's a command. He's initiating it, regardless of the Achromaticist's will. That's just what he wants, and he's taking it. And there's a little funny line where he says, how do you do, and what's on second, which is a reference to, the famous, like, who's on first, what's on second, comedy thing. I can't remember who the comedian's name was, but yeah, I mean, it's old, it predates my existence. The whole joke is that who is the name of the guy on first, and what is the name of the guy on second, and it's just like meaningless. Like, what's on second? It's not a question, it's a statement. I already know what's on second. I already know what the weather is like. I don't need to talk to you about it, but here I am, for seemingly no purpose at all, other than to just please myself, and other than this is all just to appease the Scotsman because I don't know, because well, he tells the truth towards later in the song, but I'll get to that. So we come upon the chorus, where he's like, "No true Scotsman wouldn't look me in the eye. No true Scotsman would stop socially competing." And so he's being echoed, or the Achromaticist is saying the same things in tandem with the Scotsman, as he's like becoming angrier that his interlocutor is not interested in the conversation, right? Because they see it as meaningless, there's no point to discussing things like this, so they just repeat the words back to the Scotsman as he's saying them, because they've been told this so many times. They're deeply aware of the fact that they're not looking their interlocutor in the eye, and that they're not being conventional in their behavior. And it's maybe something they've tried to work on, but it's just like part of who they are, and they don't know how to change that very easily. Not as easily as the Scotsman can do it, but he's too ignorant to recognize that. It's important to keep in mind that this is not like there is no Scotsman, as there is no like individual Mr. Second Amendment that I'm basing these two fictional characters on. It's just an abstraction of little tiny things that I've experienced, because I've never had a conversation exactly like that, or anything similar, just a few negative experiences that have had a little that have had an effect on me, and also I'm aware of other people's experiences, and so I just really had the desire to put that out there in the form of art. And so after that brief conversation, the Achromaticist, he takes notes, even though he already knows that. He already knows about the eye contact. They already know about their inability to have consistent eye contact. They recite it, and they recite it in Latin. So yeah, I wrote a whole rap verse in Latin. Anyway, that's where the title comes from, Nota, Bene. It's a good note to take, to remember for future meaningless conversations. Yeah, it's kind of sad, because they're like repeating these words to themselves. Like maybe I should try to fix that or work on that, but do I really even need to? Can I just be who I am without just receiving like thoughtless criticism? I can't say whether the translation that I used for the Latin verse is completely accurate. What I did was I took like this list of notes that I had actually already written down about how to do a conversation, like stand an arm's length away, and use like words of affirmation or words of encouragement, like yeah, no, what, really, stuff like that. And then also to like ask yourself questions after the conversation, like what did they think of me? Were they making eye contact with me? Did they find me interesting? The last two questions, or the two phrases at the end of the Latin section, are kind of translated by the Scotsman, and it turns out that he's actually asking the questions to himself as well, because like he's he's still human, regardless of whether he's offended the Achromaticist or not. And he's like, do they enjoy speaking to me, or would they never want to do it again? Because if no one ever wants to speak to me, then that wouldn't be good. You know, the Scotsman, he's just a human with maybe some misplaced desires. I don't know. I'm really not one to judge people like that if they may exist. I further try to humanize the character by taking a magnifying glass into what their actual motivation was behind starting the conversation in the beginning. He says, I'll tell you my secret before another conversation, secant, which is a fun use of words. Secant is like a mathematical term for a line that kind of intersects a circle. It's like that, kind of, it borders the circle, but not completely, and it's like before another conversation intersects our conversation, and then we have to like depart from what we were talking about before, which is like dreadful for a person like me with like social inadequacies and having difficulty with change. So yeah, but you know how conversation topics are, they're ever changing. Anyway, he gets to the point and says, it's all the same, we replay it over and over. The idols and tenets held upon one's shoulder, they weigh us all down and keep us from growing. That's why I small talked. My ego is narrowing. Yeah, that's a lot. It's kind of Nietzschean, which I'll get back to. I don't know. It's not exactly anti-religious or anti-Christian or whatever, but it's more like, I don't know, anti-traditionalism, specifically traditions that don't really have any positive effect that people like traditions that people keep just for the sake of keeping them. Like, for example, the tradition of putting sugar in porridge. Like, what's the point of doing that except just to just for the taste, to please oneself? Like, there's no need to criticize other people for not putting sugar in their porridge just because they have different tastes. A lot of subtext there. Oh, and the idea that we're replaying this over and over, that we're having the same conversations again and again. We keep asking each other about the weather, and for what reason? It's like the idea of the eternal recurrence, you know. In some ways, I won't get too deep into philosophy and make this video even longer. So there's another chorus at the end where I not only speak in English but also German. So the German part is spoken by the Scotsman, who's kind of just repeating both of them. Both voices they're repeating the phrases that they said in the first chorus. So in German he says, kein Vaterschotter findet ihre Muttersprachen schwierig, or Muttersprache, which means no true Scotsman finds their mother tongue or native language difficult, which relates to no true Scotsman would fail to speak their own language, right? And then he says, nur ein Vaterschotter würde konversieren wollen wirklich, which means only a true Scotsman would want to converse, would want to actually have a conversation. Oh, and then the Achromaticist repeats back to him, no true Scotsman wouldn't look me in the eye, right? I think that's the most relevant conversational tip, at least for me. And then he says, only a true Scotsman would bethink to say goodbye, which parallels no true Scotsman wouldn't stop and come say hi. Like the the Achromaticist forgets to say hi and forgets to say goodbye, because, you know, they're like socially constructed greetings that seen as respectful, but they're just not as important as maybe some people try to make them. Then we get to the last part, the last section, the last lyrics of the whole EP, which harken back to Vegetal, where it's just me and the guitar, except I'm actually singing. I'm not just speaking, I'm singing notes. So I speak in German first to to appease the Scotsman, to try and speak his language, literally. And I say, mein es ist unwahrscheinlich, dass Sie sich irren nicht, which is I reorganized some of the words, but it's an excerpt from Nietzsche's book, Beyond Good and Evil, which, let's see, I can't remember the context exactly, but he's just talking about truth, and how, like, philosophers have treated truth like a woman, according to his analogy. Like they chase after it, but they never actually have the to use today's terminology, they don't have the riz to actually get truth, or to understand it, to receive it. Yeah, he says to them, this is the translation of the excerpt I spoke. My dear sir, it is unlikely that you are not mistaken. It is likely that you are mistaken. But why do you even want the truth in the first place? What's so important about truth that you want to catch it, or something? I just found that quote very potent. It stuck with me, and I thought it was relevant. And so I kind of recite a new interpretation of that passage. After that, in English, I say, my dear sir, I need not choose from your options. Why the hell should I expect to become a true Scotsman? I mean, you can try to force a label onto other people, or you can try to force them to not fit into certain labels, but what's the point? They don't need to fit your expectations, because you're just, another person who is unique, who has their own individual identity that is not exactly the same as the person next to you, even if they are also a Scotsman. Every Scotsman is different, and you can't expect them to all act the same way. It's not immoral, it's not unjust if someone puts sugar in their, or refuses to put sugar in their porridge, because maybe they got diabetes or something, or high blood pressure, and they don't want to risk it, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm debating whether I should take the time to talk about the music of this song. I'll try to do it quickly, I promise, and then I'll wrap this up. So it's a really simple 2-note chord progression. It goes like, and so this is me trying to write a song in the Phrygian mode. Sounds like, and so that minor second there is kind of makes it a bit difficult to make the E minor, in this case, the tonal center, or to make it sound like that is tonal center. But I do that by starting every phrase on the E minor. With the flute mellotron, I should mention, I'm bringing that back. Oh, and then also in the intro, you can hear like this little buzzing, like a and then also the electric harmonics are there too. But that buzzing is just me taking the guitar amp, or the bass, the aux chord, and like putting it against some metal, just for the effect. for the aesthetic. And it sounds pretty good. And then we got the bass line next, just repeating that same pattern, except it's maybe a half step down or a whole step down. A lot of key changes in the song, but the time is consistent. It's in 7/8, but the emphasis on the beat is a bit weird, because usually 7/8 is like 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3. But in this song, it's 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 1 2 3 1 2 3 1, and so yeah, the one at the end sounds it's kind of off-putting, because it's like a 6/8 waltz at first, like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, but there's a 1, then it just throws you off. And I don't know, I'm always looking to make things that we usually take for granted in music, and make them a bit different enough so that they become interesting again. One more thing that I'll mention about the song is this: the recorder from my time in 5th grade music class that I still own. It was just in one of my cabinets, and I learned how to play it again and then forgot. I actually have like a huge respect for woodwind players now, because I used to play baritone, so I have some experience with brass and memorizing every single note individually, but there's only like 3 to 4 valves on a brass instrument, as opposed to like this having, what is it, like 11 or 12 holes that you have to memorize, and you also have to worry about like the amount of breath that you do. It's complicated, and I respect the profession. So naturally, my playing isn't too high quality, especially in the section where, like right before the Latin verse, where I'm playing the guitar accompanying the flute. But I kind of get into some microtonality, or I do a little glissando between notes, and that wasn't on purpose, but it sounded really cool, so I kept it in. And also, the guitar playing is not very great. I was really tired that day, and I'd done so many takes, and I think it still remains consistent with the theme, though, that the Achromaticist is really just inadequate in this kind of stuff, in speaking, conversation, and social interaction. And that's it for today. You have my respect if you made it this far, but please listen to my EP if you have the time. It's only 30 minutes long, so you can listen to it while you're doing the dishes or cooking or working outside, whatever. It would be awesome if you did listen to it, because I'm kind of proud of it, and worked on it a lot. So have a nice day. Otherwise, peace.